Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. I am your running host, Dean Thompson. It is a privilege to have an opportunity once again to uplift the activities of running and walking, but more importantly, to praise God for giving us the activities in the first place. And with me, of course, is Run for God founder Mitchell Hollis.
Thanks for having me, Dean. So last week, I corrected you last week. I was wrong in correcting. I corrected you live. You said, welcome to episode 117. I said, no, Dean, this is 118. Well, come to find out, it was 117. And for that, I'm sorry. But
I caused the problem.
But what I was looking at, my outline for the week said 118. And I don't know who sent me that outline. You know, I'm not going to point fingers. But, you know, so I just had to throw you under the bus just a little bit.
Yeah. Well deserved. Well deserved.
So all you out there thinking last week, man, Mitchell was just kind of ruthless. That was kind of out of line. Well, my sheet said 118.
Yeah, and you were probably thinking, well, why am I insisting it's 117? Because mine said 117.
Yeah, and then so if I didn't act like I was well prepared last week with the questions and answers, I'm very prepared this week because I've now looked at it twice. So that's what you get into with doing podcasts, right?
It's all fun.
So if we mess up one time in 118, we're not doing too bad.
I will say.
But I will say we've messed up more than
we have. But I will say you recovered quite nicely last week from all of that. So I'm very impressed.
Well, thanks.
Man, I had a tough day yesterday. I'll tell you what, yesterday, I've been doing way better at trail running recently. Well, yesterday, man, I took a hard fall yesterday.
Did you really?
I mean, I went down hard and fast, and I don't know if I hit my head or I didn't. There's no mark on my head where I hit my head, but I had the worst headache afterwards. And I was talking with Catherine Vradenberg. You know, the Vradenbergs, both on I've coached both of them, and they're really good ladies. But the times that I've fallen and hurt myself, one of the two of them has been there. So yesterday I was talking with Catherine, and I said, you know, I fell today and there wasn't a Vradenberg around. So
I keep telling you, Dean, those trails will get you hurt.
Oh, well.
Dangerous. Those roots jump out and grab your feet. And
that's going to keep me off trails for a little while.
Really?
And then last night at church, we had this picnic, and I ate a bunch of food that's bad for me. And I woke up just feeling horrible this morning. And so, but I'm glad we're here and doing what we're doing.
So, you know, we talk about the weather a lot.
Yeah.
I'm a weather guy.
I
looked at the forecast this morning, and next Wednesday, the real temperature is going to be 102.
Woo! And
the heat index has been close to 110 for the past couple of days here. But, man, that's rough. I was out I was doing a walk yesterday afternoon, and about, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
It was just miserable out there. No shade. So that may be one good thing about trails this time of year is you get a little bit of shade.
That's the reason I was there.
Yeah.
Was because of that. Because the day before I had run 10 miles and it was 108 was the AccuWeather real feel. And so it was, you know, I don't mind running in that kind of heat. It doesn't really bother me that much, other than it just drains you. When you get done, you're just completely drained.
Want to take a cold shower and go to bed.
Yeah. So, it's all good.
All right. Well, let's talk about this week's sponsor again. If you have a business out there and you want Run for God to help promote you, and at the same time you're supporting a ministry that wakes up every day trying to figure out how we can reach a lost and dying world with the gospel of Jesus through the sport of running, send an email to runlanehollis@gmail.com. He'll get you all the information. But this week's sponsor is Smile Doctors Orthodontics. They are the best choice for braces. Both my kids went to them. It's a fun, playful environment that takes all the stress out of braces. The workers are very caring and work towards each patient's specific needs until they are complete. Your first consultation is free, and they will examine what exact needs that you need personally. If you're interested in getting braces, find your local Smile Doctors now and get your free consultation. Again, they've got those cool big massage chairs at Smile Doctors. So the kids go in and get their braces adjusted or whatever, and you can go sit down in I think they're like $10,000, those big, nice massage chairs in the waiting room, which is, I've never seen that anywhere else.
That's pretty cool.
So go see them.
Yeah, good customer service. Well, we had a Facebook post that's actually, it's a little bit older than what we would normally use, but I just really like this one. And so this one comes from Laura Jacobs, and she says, here's the story I promised yesterday. And it's a fairly long post, but this is really cool. This is my new friend, Charlie. I met him last Wednesday at the Big Run 5K, about half a mile in. I saw him running ahead of me. I ran a little faster to catch up with him. I told him, man, it took me a while to catch up to you. I just had to tell you, you're an inspiration. Then I continued running. The next thing I know, there's Charlie right next to me, then running past me. So I did the same. We did this back and forth thing for over 2.5 miles. Suddenly, I got a second wind and focused on getting to the finish line as quickly as possible. I waited there for him to finish. When he did, he asked me what my time was so he could get an idea of his time. Before I left, he asked me if I'd be running the Sunburst on Saturday. I said I was, but that I'd be doing the 10K. I expected him to say that he was doing another 5K. But no, he said he was doing the 10K. So I said I'd see him Saturday and then left for home. Right after I left, I regretted not getting a picture with him and talking to him longer. I hoped and prayed I'd be able to find him in the crowd on Saturday. Thankfully, I did. I asked him all the questions I failed to ask on Wednesday, starting with his age. Come to find out, Charlie is 81. I asked him, what do you say to people who tell you that you're too old to be running? Because I'm sure he's heard that, as I have. I'll never forget his response. He said, I tell them I'm too young to die. And then I asked, have you been a runner your whole life? Totally expecting to hear yes. He said, no, I didn't start until I was 47. As someone who didn't start running seriously until 45, I was inspired by that. Be like Charlie. Okay, maybe your thing isn't running, but how many times have you told yourself or listened as others told you, you're too old to whatever, fill in the blank. You're too old to train for a marathon. You're too old to change careers. You're too old to relocate to another state. You're too old to follow your dreams. You're just too old. Baloney. God gave you breath in your lungs and a purpose. So be like Charlie and go do whatever that thing is that came to mind as you read this post. By the way, 81-year-old Charlie crossed the finish line before 52-year-old me, and I couldn't have been happier. Edited to add, I forgot this part. At the end of the Sunburst, I said, I did not get a second win this time. He said, yeah, I noticed. And then we both laughed.
I think we all know a Charlie.
Well, yeah, I think you're right.
I've got one in my head. I want to see if it's the same one you got in your head. Who's the Charlie you think of?
There's a lady that runs in Chattanooga that I think about, and I can't remember her name right now.
Okay. I think of Sergio Bianchi.
Yeah,
Sergio?
Yeah, I remember Sergio.
Now, is he still around? I haven't seen him in several years, but he was way up in his 80s. Yes,
and he's still running. No, he doesn't run local road races much anymore. Now he's running these ultra marathons. So
really?
He just in the last, I think for the last 4 or 5 years in a row, he has run the Vol State 500K race.
Now, am I right in saying he would be on up in his 80s now?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and he's running this 500K race. Matter of fact, there was one day that Charlie, I've got Charlie on the brain here listening to this. Sergio, he was getting tired in the Vol State 500K race, and so he had like 60-something miles left to go, which is still a long ways left to go. And he just decided, I'm just tired. I just want to get home. So he ran the entire 60 miles without stopping. The last 60 miles of 314 miles.
Wow.
Because he was just tired and wanted to go home. It's just Sergio's amazing. He's
got to be in some kind of record book to be doing that at that age.
He's
because I know I don't know if you and HR talked about it on your interview or not, but some of HR's best memories was him and Sergio used to duke it out.
Yeah.
Sergio and Doug Holly's another one.
Yeah.
So I think we've all got these Charlies in our mind.
We do.
When we start to think we're too old to do anything, you just got to pull up the Charlie or the Sergio or the Doug in your mind and say, no, that's just an excuse.
Yeah, I wonder why it is that so many people don't look to that person, though. We all, like you said, we all know that person, but often people go, well, I'm too old for that, when in the back of their mind, they've got that person that they can pull out and go, well, if they can do it.
Well, in the moment, a lot of times you don't want to hear that.
Well,
you block that out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we need to pull that picture up in our head when we think we're too old, because you think about it, you're never really too old to do anything. Well, what's the story? Was it Colonel Sanders? Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Yeah,
he was like in his late 60s.
Yeah, before he
ever started Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
And look what happens.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool story if you ever look it up.
Yeah, it is.
Story of him.
It is a cool story. Yeah, and I just think this is also a cool story about meeting somebody at a race too. How many times do we do that? I mean, there's some people that the only reason I know them is because I've met them at races on Saturdays.
Saturday friends.
My Saturday friends. Yeah, it's pretty fun and pretty cool. And if you're out there and you're thinking I'm too old to do whatever it is, cut it out. Mm-hmm. Cut it out. Go and try it. Now, I mean, there's some things we do have limitations. I've always wanted to be an Olympian. I think it's a little too late for me.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's the Senior Olympics. So there's your chance, Dean.
All right, we had a trivia question last week, and it was this. There's one men's NCAA cross-country team that has dominated the NCAA cross-country by winning 5 of the last 6 titles. What school is it? Did you know the answer to this one?
Well, I thought I did. I had 2 schools in my head. I had Oregon and Colorado in my head.
I was afraid that. I thought that when you said that. I thought, I don't think it's who you think.
Yeah. So I did not know this.
Yeah. Northern Arizona University, NAU. NAU is in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is at altitude. And what you find a lot of times is a lot of these best cross-country teams are at altitude. Colorado is one of those. BYU is another one. They train at altitude. But Northern Arizona has just absolutely dominated the cross-country scene. Interestingly, they have had no individual champions in the history of their program.
Really?
Yeah, and so they've just got these teams that are so good. And the high school from California that has all these great runners, Solomon and all of those guys. The names, Nico Young goes to NAU. He's one of their runners. They've got that pipeline of people coming from that high school that's so good. But the NCAA championships too, that began back in 1938. So cross country's been around for a long time, and of course cross country originated out in Europe, not in the United States. It started in East Lansing, Michigan, Indiana. University of Indiana. If you got any Indiana alums out there, that was the first team to win the NCAA cross country title. Back then, it was only 4 miles. The race was only 4 miles, and a guy named Greg Rice ran it and won it in 2012. And I look at 2012 now, and that, I know for a lot of people, you think 2012 for 4 miles seems fast. That's really, really slow. For today's standards, it would be pedestrian. They go through. They probably go through 4 miles in the 10K that they run now at least a minute or two faster than that. And then the race changed to 6 miles in 1965, and at some point it changed to 10K. Arkansas is the team that has won the most titles. They've won 11 NCAA titles, and they won all of those between 1984 and 2000. I mean, they were like NAU now. They just dominated cross country. Wisconsin has run in the championship the most. They've been in the championship 57 times, which is pretty cool. I got a friend of mine who lives in Chattanooga, who we got him out of retirement one time to run one race with us. He blew me away and ran really well, and then went back into retirement.
So you're not going to call him again?
Well, no, I wish he'd run some more. I want him out there. Yeah. But, he went to Wisconsin. Women didn't begin running cross country in the NCAA until 1981.
Really?
So kind of like the marathon. The marathon took so long to come along. Women didn't begin running cross country Now, they started World Cross Country Championships before 81, but that's when it started in the NCAA. Villanova has won the most titles in women's cross country. The most team appearances is North Carolina State with 28, and they are dominant right now. Caitlin Toohey just won the NCAA championship for NC State in the 5K on the track. And Northern Arizona has never won the women's title, but they're getting better every year. I think that may be on the horizon at some point. So the most individual titles for anybody. For women, Sally Kipyego won 3 titles for Texas Tech. She's the only one to have ever done that. On the men's side, there have been 4 guys who have won 3 titles. Jerry Lindgren for Washington State did it way back in the, I think he's in the 60s. Steve Prefontaine. Anybody ever heard that name?
Never heard of him.
From the University of Oregon. Henry Rono from Washington State also. And then Ed Cheserek, who we all call King Ches, was the most recent guy from Oregon. So out of those 4 guys, there are 2 schools, Washington State and Oregon. So,
wow.
And that's all Division I. There are other divisions in the NCAA. You have Division II and Division III in NCAAs. You got NAIA, which is where Dalton State competes. There's the NJCAA. And then there's a bunch of other smaller organizations as well. So there's a lot of running going on there. So
let me ask you a question. I want to pick your brain about something. We haven't talked about this. I was talking to a triathlon coach just this past week. He's coached one of our more recent triathlon Olympians, and we were talking about exactly what you're talking about here. The Arizona team who has won more championships, but they've never had a standout. They've never had somebody that stood head and shoulders and had their own titles. And we were talking about this very thing because it's getting popular nowadays for some triathlon teams are starting to form some high-performance teams. But what we're starting to see, now this could change tomorrow, but as of right now, there have been no standouts come out of these teams. And he was saying that what happens is, and it's a good thing for cross-country, but you build these packs and pack mentality, and so you kind of start to equalize the team, which is great for cross-country.
Yeah.
But when you get into an individual sport like triathlon, it can actually hamper the would-be standout athletes. You kind of dial them back, and you're helping. And we've kind of talked about this before. What are your thoughts on that? Do you believe in that theory of the pack mentality? It's kind of an equalizer.
I'm not a fan of it.
But do you think it's true? Do you think that theory is true?
I honestly don't. I do think that it helps bring the people that are let's say you got a pack of 5 guys, and I think it helps 4 and 5 a good bit to pull them up toward the front. But I think if you're holding back 1 and 2, 4 and 5, you're not really gaining anything.
But no, I'm asking you. The teams would say that doesn't happen, but this particular coach says that he's absolutely sure that it does happen. Not that they're doing it on purpose, but I know they do. It just naturally happens that your slower runners get faster and your faster runners tend to get slower when you're always training together.
Yeah, I think there's something to that for sure. Yeah, I think that's a challenge as a coach. Sure. Sometimes it's why the number 1 runner on our team. I have her do workouts on her own occasionally because I want her to do some things different than everybody else because I don't want her in the pack. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's some truth to that. Yeah. I think it is. I think we've seen it with Lane. That he benefits from working out with guys that are better than him. Yeah. And I think there's some truth to that. Yeah, for sure. I think so. I think it depends on the individual too. I think some people are just better at pushing themselves by themselves than other people are. But I look back at my high school team and I think about we had 5 years in a row. We had the mile state champion. They were 5 different guys. And the reason why that happened, I think, was because the guy behind the guy that won saw what was possible. And so I think there's definitely some things about pulling people forward.
Right.
But yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I love cross country. But talk about cross country. Cross country in the NCAA for the men is 10K. And we got a 10K coming up soon, don't we? Yeah,
we got the Hawkins Fun to Razor 10K coming up, and I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's going to be really cool. It's man, the course down there is just beautiful. I hope it's not 105 degrees that day. I'm pretty sure it'll cool off by then. But yeah, we've got it up on the website. The fundraising is going great. Patrick and Angie are doing an incredible job. They got a great team around them helping them out. So yeah, it's just around the corner. So go on runforgod.com and get signed up. Also, we got a lot of things that are popping up right now. We just released the ladies skirts, which are a hit. They're not really my cup of tea. I don't wear skirts much. I'm sure everybody's glad to hear that. But yeah, they look great. And the ladies are loving them. They're just flying off the shelves. We're kind of in that pre-sale period right now. They're being manufactured right now and should be here in a couple of weeks, and we'll get those shipped out. Or as of the time of this podcast, they may be close to already being out. But yeah, go check those out. The tanks are still buy 4, get 1 free. So you can get 5 tanks for the price of 4. So got a lot of cool things going on. And also the launch of the new runforgod.com is very close at the time of this, when this podcast is releasing. So a lot of great things going on here. Go check it out. Get your friends, get a class on the schedule for this fall for your community. Don't be scared. If you feel like God's moving you to coach or lead or facilitate one of these programs, a 5K challenge, then go ahead and start making plans to do that now. The fall is one of the most popular times to start a Run for God class. You got that nice cool air coming in. People are wanting to get out and do stuff outside. So be thinking about that. Pray about it.
Yeah.
As a mom, I want to make sure we choose a cereal that's not entirely derived from sugar. Their car seats have to be nationally CPS certified, and their first car has to have every possible safety feature known to man. I just want to do my best to make sure that they're safe. One thing I don't have to worry about is the content they hear on J Radio. Not only do they love the music, but I know it's only going to be a positive message that I would approve of. Now, if I could just figure out how to get my youngest from sticking everything up his nose.
Sign up at jradio.com and download the new J Radio app in your app store.
All right, we're back. And we've had some pretty good Thursday night lives recently. And if you're not tuning in on Thursday nights, it would be a good idea. We try to do a variety of things on Thursday nights. It's a little looser. We tend to answer questions as they come, and it's just kind of a laid back way to talk about and learn about running and about different things. And so tune in on Thursday night if you're not doing that. 9:00 Eastern time.
Yeah.
On the Facebook page, the Run Club page.
Everybody that's on there seems to have a lot of fun. It's very interactive, which is what we hoped it would have been.
Yeah.
But people really queue in, ask questions, talk back and forth, and so it's fun to kind of be on the fly on the wall and watch that.
Yeah.
Watch that on Thursday nights.
Yeah, I like to see the encouragement. People encouraging. Somebody will put something in there, and everybody's praying for somebody, and it's pretty cool. Technology. I was thinking about technology recently because I remember a time, and I don't remember what struck this chord with me, but I remember a time when we used to go out for a run, and then I would get in my car and drive that route and measure it with my odometer to see how far I ran.
I still have marks. You can still see marks on the road out in front of my house where the start-finish line for different distances are.
Yeah.
Did you ever mark lines with like paint?
No, I didn't mark them, but I used landmarks for things. So once I knew how far a route was, I was fine with it.
Yeah.
But, it was. Yeah, I just remember that time, and now we're so spoiled.
And it wasn't that long ago.
No,
that's the crazy thing, is it really wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, technology is moving along so fast. It's so much better. I remember when GPS first came out, and it was not very accurate. No. And I got a GPS watch when you had to wear this big box thing on your arm, and I've always.
And right before that, it was the foot pod.
Yeah.
The Nike, Nike Plus, was that what it was? Where you had to calibrate it for your stride length, and then it knew how many times your foot hit the ground. And so I don't know if you started going up a hill, it got really off because you shortened your stride easily.
Yeah. But it's the GPS has spoiled us, and now you got, with heart rates and all of the things, your stride rate and there's a gazillion things out there, and it's pretty cool. But it's just different. I remember too. We used to keep paper logs. Where we used to write stuff down. I just listened to an interview with a guy who still keeps a paper log, and he's a high schooler.
Really?
I thought that was interesting. But that's another thing is now I get through running, and I always walk a couple hundred meters after I get through running, and during that couple hundred meters, my watch is already telling me that I've already uploaded my run for that run. Yeah. And it just keeps track of all that stuff. And
sometimes I don't know, Lane, Lane's my resident technology.
Yeah.
You always say, people say, you're getting old when you have to get your kids to do the technology. Well, I do that now. And my watch, sometimes I want to throw it because I'll be sitting at my desk and working, and I may have walked that morning or the afternoon before, or going to that afternoon, and my watch will bzzz, and it'll say move. I'm like, really? I mean,
mine doesn't do that.
Well, he turns it off, and somehow it turns itself back on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I'll go to him and I'll say, I'm about to choke my watch here. It's telling me to move. I don't want to move. I'm working. The watch don't know that people actually work. So sometimes the technology can be just a little
that's true.
over-engineered.
One that I remember that was funny was when portable CD players first came out. This was before MP3 players, right? Before you could load your music on something kind of hard. And I remember running with a CD player in my hand. And
it was like the Walkman, but it was a CD player.
Yes. Yeah, it was like the cassette Walkman. That was the first thing that you ran with. And then they came out with the CD players. Well, they had not perfected the anti-skipping technology at that point. And so you had to run nice and even, and you couldn't jar it too much or it would skip.
That's why it was called the Walkman.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I remember that technology. And now we've got Bluetooth, and you can
have all your music on your watch nowadays. Yes. I think Lane can have music. Yeah. Can you have it on your watch?
I don't put it on my watch, but I could.
You can.
Yeah,
mine doesn't. I get the hand-me-downs from Lane.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's insane how far it makes you wonder, where are we going to be in another 10 years?
Yes. Yes. Well, I just saw an interview, and this isn't part of the script, but I just saw something where this computer guy had programmed this computer, artificial intelligence stuff, and he had a conversation with this computer, artificial intelligence, and it's amazing. If you want to go Google that and look that up, where this interview between this programmer and they wound up firing this guy at Google. The guy worked at Google. They wound up firing him because of some of the things he said about it. But there are some people out there going, AI is now alive. That it's so good that now it thinks. Scary. It really does think, and it really is scary.
Well, they're getting it to where it can learn.
Yes,
it can learn, like not having to be taught. It can learn on its own almost.
Well, and this AI understood feelings.
Yeah,
that's where
that's crazy.
That's where it gets really crazy.
It's real crazy.
And I wonder about the implications.
But I'm going to go off on another rabbit trail because I want everybody. This is going to be my stock pick for my one and only stock pick. But I feel like I know what the next big thing is. We had the power. We had light bulb. We had the internet. We had the telephone. And I keep saying, you always, at least I do, I always wonder what's going to be the next big thing. I think it's going to be wireless power.
You think?
I think, yeah, because they've already kind of started. You already kind of have it with the phone chargers in your vehicles now. That's wireless.
Yeah.
What they got to figure out is how to make it wireless where it doesn't kill you if you get in between that and the charging source. But I was actually talking to my brother-in-law, who he works for Duke Energy in the nuclear division. He's an engineer around all the nuclear substations and all that. And he said that the patents are already in place.
Really?
Yeah, but the technology is probably years from being perfected. But could you imagine just having your computer and not having to have a cord? For there to be no more power lines?
Yeah.
You know, all that is...
Yeah.
The technology of the cell phone is what I'm talking about, where you have a tower...
Right.
And people for 5 miles around it get their power from that tower. That rhymes. Yeah, so, if you see a company that's on the cusp of doing that, I'll be investing in it.
Yeah.
I think that's the next big, like the internet size or the light bulb size things. Because that would, of course, I think my prediction is the power companies will buy up that technology before it ever sees the light of day.
Now, that'll be interesting to see. Yeah, but why would the power companies are still power distribution people? So you would
I just think about the grid that's already in place. And I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know how we got off there.
Well, my thing, here's what I think.
Okay.
That's your prediction. My prediction is the next big thing is fusion. Fusion is going to change power.
You're going to have to explain what fusion is.
Well, we're not going to get into all that. But fusion is
So I have to go look this up.
You have to go look it up. Okay. Yeah. But they basically, fusion is now down to, it's kind of like what you're talking about. It's down to an engineering problem now, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about is it's an engineering issue now.
Let's figure out how to do it. We know it can be done.
Yep.
Let's figure out how to do it.
Yep. And fusion is kind of that way. So, so I think investing in fusion, the company that figures it out, is going to be the next big thing.
So just as a disclosure, Dean and I are not stock advisors. Whatever the disclosures we're supposed to be giving right here, just don't listen to us.
That's right. That's right. Completely ignore us. It'd probably be best.
Yeah.
All right. Second chances. I love second chances. And it's been my experience that many of them are not successful, but very often they are. And the ones that are just awesome. Mm-hmm. And so here's a story about second chances. It comes from Josh Johnson, and it's called Second Chances. I can't count the number of times in my life I've been given a second chance. As a young teenager, I loved the outdoors, and as my dad was teaching me to hunt and fish, I remember one November morning deer hunting on the edge of a field, me on one side and he on the other. A few hours passed, and as I began to get restless, a small buck stepped out into the field not 50 yards away. I raised my gun, shaking nervously, and took aim. Bang! The deer never moved and actually looked at me and started grazing again. I was sure I hit it. I chambered another round, making all kinds of noise, and took aim again. The deer, still standing broadside, hadn't moved. I took a deep breath and pulled the trigger. This time, I got him on my second chance. As a freshman in college, I thought I had it all figured out. I had graduated high school, top 10 in my class with honors, excelled in sports, and was that guy who was friends with everyone. At Christmas break, I didn't want to come home because I knew when my grades came in the mail, my parents were going to be furious because I basically wasted away the first semester. It was bad. But worse was the fact that my parents gave me a second chance, and I blew it again the second semester. So they brought me back home, and I started working and going to the local community college to get my butt in gear. Eventually, I worked my way back up and graduated college with a master's in education administration on my second chance, maybe third this time. After teaching in the classroom for 10 years, a principal position came open in our district, and this was something I desired, so I put my name in the hat and started praying hard with my wife. I received the new position and was so happy and thanked God for her answered prayers, my answered prayers. To make a long story short, it was the worst year of my professional career, and I was removed from the position a year later, and I was devastated. I had done everything by the book and just couldn't understand it. So I had a good old-fashioned pity party and started questioning things. I remember even talking with God and saying, why? Why me? What did I do wrong? I thought for sure this principal position was where God wanted me. I never fully understood why 2 years later, when God presented me with a new opportunity and a whole new career outside of education, and even better than I had expected, God revealed to me then the whys that I had been struggling with on my second chance. In 2016, I ran my first race ever because my sister and father had been running for a few years and kept bugging me to try it. So I did. but I didn't train like I should, and to be honest, I was just doing it for them. I ended up hating it and remember saying to them they were crazy and stupid for enjoying something like running. 3 years later, I had a nudge from God to get back into running, but this felt different. You see, up to now, I'd been doing things in life for the wrong reasons, my reasons. I was doing things for me. I was saved at an early age and had been playing Christian for most of my life, and God was changing me. In 2019, I started running again with my family on my second chance. A year later, I was enjoying running so much, and it felt so different, but I still felt God pushing me more than I ever had to do more with my life, so I started praying for His will, and I would follow. I felt God saying that I needed to share my running with others and not just for me, so I literally sat down on the couch one night and Googled running and God. Guess what popped up first? The Run for God program. As I read through the pages and scrolled through the website, it felt like my insides were going to burst. It was everything God had been speaking to me about. After many prayers with my wife, family, pastor's family, and other church members, we started our first Run for God Team Coolidge group in April of 2021 for the 5K challenge. We completed that challenge, and some of our group thought that that would be the end of it for them. This year, we decided to do the Couch to Marathon, and for many, this is their second chance. One flaw of mine is that I struggle sometimes to see things in the moment for what God is telling me, and I miss it and have to have second chances, and I thank God for them. But I want to get better at not needing a second chance. This past year, I missed one of those opportunities. Our group decided to come to Dalton for the 5K challenge, and I couldn't wait. I was so excited to get to meet all of those people that had been cheering us on in the Run for God Facebook group, and I especially wanted to meet Mitchell and Dean. I had already made plans to share my story at the dinner, and I couldn't wait. Our group got there Friday evening for the meeting downtown. As we gathered up in the circle to introduce ourselves, Mitchell came over to me and pointed to me to start. I was so nervous I couldn't even get my name out. First chance, and I blew it. Next day, we completed the race, and God blessed our group tremendously, and me personally with a first-place age group win. First time ever in my life, and maybe the last. I wanted to thank them personally and introduce myself. I couldn't bring myself to it. Second chance, and I blew it again. At the dinner Saturday night, I knew the time was coming, and sure enough, Mitchell started walking around with the mic asking for stories. I started getting nervous, fidgety, sweating. I wanted to so bad. Third chance, blew it. On Sunday morning at their church service, after so many attempts, I finally got the courage to get up to get Angie Hawkins to set up a photo pic with Dean and Mitchell. Here I stood between Dean and Mitchell getting a pic, and I still was nervous and didn't even know if I really introduced myself or not. Thanks, guys, and hopefully you will also give me a second chance to share my story next year at the dinner. Ultimately, God gives each of us a second chance. We are born into sin, but through His Son, Jesus Christ, the salvation plan was completed to give us the second chance to live with Him eternally. Thank you, Lord, for that saving grace and the many chances you give us daily. Thank God for second chances.
That's a great story. And if you're watching, I pulled this picture that Josh talked about. This is me, you, and Josh. And, you know, I'm always tickled at people, and you're the same way.
Yeah.
We're just normal guys that sit up here and blabber on microphones. I'm as excited to meet Josh and all these people who are household names. They may not believe what we're saying here.
Yeah.
But they are. These are household names that we see, we interact with on the Facebook group in different capacities. It may be through Steve Runner. You know, we have a lot of aliases that we interact with people on. And I'm so giddy on Friday and Thursday when people start showing up for the Run for God weekend and people get out of their car and you're like, I know that one. I know, oh, that's Josh, or oh, that's who
Yeah.
I remember meeting Angie for the first time.
Yeah.
And I thought she was like a superstar.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just, it's very humbling to hear a story like this. By the way, Josh, you got to tell your story.
Yeah.
And you got to tell it on a much bigger scale than
Yes.
than Saturday night at the Run for God weekend. But yeah, I mean, just
and what a great story.
A great story.
You know what really strikes me in this story, and I really didn't catch it the first time through that I read it, but reading it this second time, what really strikes me is how Josh, clearly in this story, it shows his maturity as a Christian and how mature he's getting as a Christian. You know, it showed that clearly his first attempts at talking with God were, this is what I want to do. Hey, God, bless what I want to do. And he's gotten to the point now where he's looking for God. What do you want me to do?
Sure.
And
he wants to go where God is.
Yeah.
And be there.
It gives me goosebumps just to think about it.
Okay, so you're looking at this picture, and if you're listening to the podcast, you need to go watch it on the YouTube. But I admired Josh for one thing when I first met him, the beard.
Yeah.
I've always wanted the salt and pepper. A lot of people color their beard black. My beard is black, and I've always wanted the salt and pepper look. And so I don't know if they make.
Just wait, it's coming.
What's the stuff they make for men that you color your beard?
Just for men?
Just for men, yeah. I don't wonder if they have just for men salt and pepper.
I don't know. That's a good
to make
point.
it go. But anyway, so yeah, this is the picture of Josh that he's talking about. But yeah, this was an incredible story, and I'm glad he sent it in.
Well done. Well done story. Well done story. Yep. Yeah. And I think second chances are so important. And I tell, like what the teams that I coach, I always tell them to soak in when we get opportunities to do cool stuff. I told them last year we won our third conference championship in a row. And I said, soak this in, enjoy this, revel in it, because we may not be back here next year. Mm-hmm. Now, I hope we are.
Sure.
But we might not be. And really, really understand that you've done something really significant, and it's really cool, and you should really enjoy it, because you may not get a second chance, because sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
And I think taking advantage of things and realizing that is important. And of course, you can't help but look at the implications of God giving us second chances,
right.
Third chances, 10th chances, 4,000th chances.
Yeah.
Because we just mess up regularly.
Yeah.
And God tells us that He's going to forgive us over and over again. And He, in the Bible, it even tells us to forgive other people. And Jesus was asked, how many times should I forgive somebody?
Yeah.
And basically He says
7 times 70.
Yeah, every time. And
that's just a figure of speech. It's not actually 7 times 70, which
right.
I don't even know what that number is, 4,900 or something. Or 490.
It's every time.
It's every time.
Yeah. And that's hard for us, because, and this is the part that gets me, is that God forgives us every time, and we have a hard time forgiving other people every time. I think we'll get into that more as we go through these scripture passages. Micah 7:18 says, "Who is a God like you, pardoning iniquity and passing over the transgression of the remnant of his heritage? He does not retain his anger forever, because he delights in mercy."
I think this is a rhetorical question, because there is none like God. But we have unlimited chances with God. Now, I don't say that the point is not that we have unlimited chances, so kind of go do what you want to do. But number one, we got to be a child of God. Just last night we were reading as a family in Romans. And I call this the Dr. Seuss verse in Romans. And it's where Paul is talking about, I do the things that I do not want to do, and I do not do the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
And it, how it goes through that, I think 2 or 3 times, and it feels like a Dr. Seuss book when you're reading it, but it's Paul, vividly explaining that we are in our flesh here. We are in our sinful flesh. We're in a sinful world, and this is the struggle that we all deal with. But thank God for God's grace and mercy and forgiveness, that He knows we're going to go off the rails. Now, that's not to say that we have to go off the rails. Mm-hmm. I posed a question to my boys the other night. It was kind of a trick question. We were in Romans 4 or 5. And but I asked the question, I said, is it possible to not sin? And they both went to say, and then they stopped, and they really sat there and thought about it. And they said, yes. And that is the correct answer. It is possible to not sin.
That's a great question.
It is possible.
Yeah.
But society many times says that society in the church world says, well, you're under grace. That's kind of a license to do what you want to do. No, that's not the case.
Yeah.
We are to do everything in our power, and we have the tools at hand to not sin. We are children of God, Jesus. And Jesus did it as an example for us. So if it was done as an example for us, then it shows that it can be done.
Well, what's interesting about Jesus and him not sinning was, I think we look at Jesus and we think, well, it was easy for him to not sin.
No.
Think about how many times Jesus had to get away from a situation and go spend lots of time praying, and that's why he had to do that, right?
Yeah, and we talked about this the other night, and I kind of compared it to a workout. You know, if I don't like the term "I'm just a sinner saved by grace." Yeah. I never have liked that. It kind of makes my skin crawl because it's kind of like saying I'm an elite athlete who fails all the time and I'm just going to try again. Yeah. You don't wake up thinking about this afternoon's workout saying I'm going to fail at that, but I'll go give it a try anyway. Why do we have that attitude with our walk with Christ? No, we should get up every day saying, God, I'm going to be the best version of me with your help today, and I'm going to get through this day not sinning. Yeah. And if it happens, we've got grace there. We get up, we go again tomorrow, and we say, today's the day. If we have that kind of anticipation, expectation, you know, God says to pray expectantly. But many times we pray for help with struggles, not expecting anything, because we're just a sinner saved by grace. And that's, I know I'm kind of getting on a tangent, but
no,
I don't like that. We don't do that in every other area of our lives. We don't go to work saying, I'm probably just going to be mediocre today, but I'm going to go anyway. Yeah. No, we go in and we say, I'm going to be the best I can be today.
Yeah, but that's a good point.
We allow ourselves to settle many times when it comes to sin.
I remember when I was a younger guy, much younger guy, and I remember I had let me just say, I use a lot of language I shouldn't have used at one time in my life, and I did it a lot. And I made up my mind one time. Basically, God convicted me and said, you need to stop it, period. And I remember every day doing exactly what you're talking about. Every day I woke up, I was like, okay, I'm not going to use one of those words today. And then I would count every day how many of those words I used, and I would tally that at the end of the day and go, I'm doing better tomorrow. Sure. And that's really what we should do. Just from a general sin standpoint, right? We should look at it the same way as, okay, God, I messed up 3 times yesterday. Today I'm going to do better. Yeah, I love that sentiment. That's fantastic. And I think a lot of people talk about God, and we talk about God allowing bad things to happen. And I think about that when I look at this verse, and I think about it when we talk about sin. Why does God let us do that kind of thing? And why do bad things happen to good people, and all of those stories? And I think, but this is what we focus on, what God doesn't do. Right? He doesn't stop these things. We're focusing on what he's not doing. And we're not focusing on what he does do. He forgives us every single time. Now think about that in the context of your best friend. What if your best friend did something negative towards you every single day? How long would they be your best friend? Probably not. But with God, it's every single time. Right. So, yeah, I love that verse. Ephesians 4:32 says, and be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. That's a rare thing these days, unfortunately. I say that. It's not rare, but it's rare in certain contexts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why my mind went here, but I think about families who struggle with forgiveness because someone took a loved one from them.
Yeah.
the things that God has prompted me to forgive people for pale in comparison to something like that. But that's the exact kind of forgiveness that he asks us to extend, because that's the exact kind of forgiveness that he used as the example.
Yeah.
This world took his son.
Yeah.
Who was innocent, who had never sinned. And he paid that price. And that was the example for us, that it doesn't matter what happened, as bad and heinous as you may think it is, and it is, we're to forgive that person.
Yeah.
And I hope I never have to struggle with those type scenarios. But if I do, I hope with God's grace that and strength that I will be able to. But I don't know why my mind went there when I read this, because it's the ultimate forgiveness. It's about as bad as it can get. But that frees you. You say that unforgiveness, it doesn't affect the person that needs to be forgiven. It only affects the person that needs to extend the forgiveness.
Yeah.
And that's true. It is.
Yeah.
Unforgiveness will haunt you as the person that needs to extend it.
It will. And one of the things that scares me about what you're talking about, what this verse is talking about, and social media is a place where, not just social media, message boards, articles that are posted, and then comments that follow, all of those things are making it easy for us to be really callous towards one another, because we don't see the person on the other end.
Right.
The truth is that people who are keyboard warriors, probably when they see people face to face, are way kinder than they are when they're behind the keyboard,
or the texters,
all of that. But here's what scares me the most is we have virtual reality stuff that is getting realer and realer every day. We're talking about artificial intelligence a little while ago. You combine that with virtual reality, and what scares me is that this is giving a place for people that you're talking about, the people who have had that loved one taken away from. This is going to give them a place to go away from everybody.
Yeah. And
be on their own, in their built world that's not even real. And, and that's a scary thing.
I don't know what you think about all that. I know that when Lane was younger, there was and they did away with it pretty quick, and I think it was because of the parents, but there was the swim club that Lane is on. The club he's still on. They got these virtual reality goggles, and it was a tutorial on swim, and you could put these on and you could really, evidently the sensations or whatever, it was very real. I never would let Lane do that. And I have never put a set on. I refuse to put a set on because I feel like I think it's cool. Yeah. I think I would probably enjoy it. Yeah. And that scares me for the reason you're talking about. It's a slippery slope, and I have set my foot down that as long as you're in this house, you're not putting a set of those on. And I feel like I sound old fashioned. I feel like I sound like my dad when the cell phone first came out, or whatever. I don't know, but and maybe it is the same thing, but I don't think it is, because a cell phone, you still have to talk to somebody. There's somebody on the other end of what you're doing. With this virtual reality and AI stuff, it's what you build, and you can have a whole world that has no human contact in it, and that's not how we're made. We are social people by creation, and I don't know.
And it's why we have to be very purposeful in connecting with God. That's why that's so important, because God will direct us, and I would dare say that part of the reason why you have that feeling about virtual reality is conviction from God. Of God saying, be careful of what you do.
I've said on here before, how do you know when God's talking to you? And I've always said that when what he's saying contradicts with what you're feeling and it really doesn't make sense. Well, my feeling, like I just said, I feel like I would probably enjoy it. Yeah. But my gut, everything in me, the Holy Spirit inside of me is throwing up red flags right and left, and that's how I know it's God, and that's why I know I should listen to it, because I have no doubt if I put a set of those on and it was whatever, I would think, oh man, this is pretty cool. And then it's over.
Yeah.
And
God wants us to enjoy things. He wants us to have an enjoyable life.
Right.
He talks about an abundant life. That's an enjoyable life.
But not things that pull you away from Him.
That's right. Yeah. And you're right. That could do it. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life.
There's the example.
That's it. Mm-hmm. That's period. And we talk about sinning and all that. We so don't deserve it. And this whole story is about second chances. And this is God giving us a second chance. And so the question to everybody, to me, to you, to everybody is, what are we doing with that second chance? You know, I mentioned that there's people get second chances, and I've given people second chances a number of times that didn't work out very well. Mm-hmm. And probably more often than not. Mm-hmm. But I've given people second chances too, where it was a game changer and a life changer for them. And the question is, what are we doing with the second chance that God has given us on life by sending His Son? And you know, if our answer is, I don't know that I'm doing much with it, well, we need to double down, because the truth is, He's going to give us the third chance and the fourth chance. So we need to take one of those chances and run with it, right? Yeah. In this verse, of course, this is probably the most well-known verse in the Bible. Sure. I would say. And I don't know that most people understand that this was Jesus talking to Nicodemus when this was said, when Jesus said this, and it's so well known. But I think I never really put this together before, but this is Jesus trying to explain what is different about Him, because Nicodemus has this interest in Jesus and trying to figure out what is it? There's something about you, and I know there's something about you, and what is it? And this is Jesus describing. This is the most important thing about telling Nicodemus why he's different. And so Nicodemus needed to hear that. And this is why this is the most important verse in the Bible, is because we all need to hear it, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nicodemus was the ultimate skeptic.
Yeah.
I mean, he was parsing every word that Jesus was saying. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
It still amazes me how precise Jesus was in His language.
Exactly.
In the way that He said things.
Not a word too much. Yeah. Not a word too little.
Yeah.
And that's why it's still relevant today.
Yeah. And He knew that people were hanging on every single word and looking for one word at a place. Just like today, cancel culture, they're looking for one indiscretion, one word that you say that's not right.
I mean, cancel culture is not a new thing. The Pharisees were probably... They were the first group of cancer culturists.
That's true. Question: how many second chances have others and God given you over time?
You know, when I read this, it's easy to go. It's easy to think, oh, you're doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. You know, I only had one or two last week, as if that's good. Yeah. You know, maybe everybody listening to this thought that, and because when I heard it, I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing pretty good, until you think about your thoughts.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That gets close right there, because, I mean, scriptures are clear. Your thoughts are just as damning as actions when it comes to the realm of sin, and that's why we're to hold our thoughts captive. That's why we need to stay in the Word. That's why we need to be praying and interacting with others who are like us, because you may be the person that never acts on sin, but the act of thinking many times can be sin.
Yeah.
And when you start to put that in this equation, I can't count the second chances.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, God gives us so many. And people. I mentioned to you, when I got here this morning, I shared some frustration with you that...
you never do that, though.
Yeah.
We always rant right before this podcast.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Well, and this morning it was... we had a practice scheduled, And
your forgetter's getting worse.
yes, and you texted me and said, "Hey, can we do this at a different time?" And I was just like, "Yeah, we can. Yeah, no problem." And then it didn't even hit me. It didn't hit me until last night that, oh no, that was the same time as practice was supposed to be, and so we worked it out. But those girls, they get so, it's funny because they know me, they know how I am, and they're so forgiving of my forgetfulness and it's.
See, I've got a little Dean living in my house now.
Yeah.
Landon, last night, Landon has started this new woodworking company, and he's just working all the time. Well, at 6:20 last night, Holly goes out there and she says, "Are you going to church?" He said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well," he said, "What time does it start?" She said, 6. He said, "What time is it?" She said, 6:20. He was like, "Oh, okay, I'll be back." He got in his truck and went to church. I'm like, that is not my kid.
I love Landon. It's
not my kid.
No, it's not. No, but what's funny because if you had done something like that, you'd be freaking out, right? And Landon's like, "All right, I'll just go."
Yeah, well, the problem is he just stopped what he was doing. No cleanup. We've had the whole stop 30 minutes before you're ready to stop and clean this place up. He just lays everything down, takes off, and there I am cleaning stuff up at that point. So I understand the struggle, but I don't get it.
Well, and I think that's important that we all learn to give second chances as well. Mm-hmm. I've said before that my wife knows me and understands me. I think when we first got married for the first 4 or 5 years, I was really, really frustrating to her because of the way that I am. And
sure.
After a while, she got to realizing that it's not because I don't care. It's because it's just how I'm wired. And so she's in that mode of, okay, she texts me all the time. Hey, don't forget this. She sees something on my calendar and goes, you got this coming up. And I probably remembered it, but she's texting me anyway, just in case I forgot. And that's really comforting because I think I think that's the thing we miss all the time is we miss people's hearts being in the right place.
Sure.
And when somebody's heart is in the right place, I don't mind giving somebody second, third, fourth, fifth, however many, when their intentions are good. And but in this day and time, that's not the usual thing. Now it's fine for me and you. You could do things, and you and I have this relationship where I'm going to forgive you every time, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a big deal because we're friends.
Sure.
But the person we don't like, the person who has the wrong political opinion from us, well, as soon as they do one thing wrong, we want to throw them under the bus and go,
scream it from the mountaintops.
That's right. Yeah. And that's a shame. Question number 2. Have you ever had a time in your life where you made a decision you were sure was God's plan, but then found out it was really part of a bigger plan later?
Getting 12 T-shirts made.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my go-to answer there.
It's the ultimate.
That's absolutely what it was.
Yep. And even for me, too, in my involvement in Run for God, I was just going to help write a book, and then I was going to be done.
Yeah.
And here we are.
We were going to teach one class and be done.
Yeah. And years later, we got this Run Club thing, and we're 118 episodes into podcast.
I mean, think about it. We've mentioned this before, but for the people who may be new here, think about what both of us would have done. Me, 12 years ago. You, 7 years ago now?
Yeah.
8 years ago. If God would have revealed to us the bigger picture. If when he prompted me to go get 12 T-shirts made, if he would have gave me a glimpse into today, or he would have when you were still at another job, would have gave you a glimpse in to today without any context, but just the fact that we were going to be quitting our jobs, we were going to be stepping out on faith. That's the reason he doesn't do that, is because I would have been running from God in that instance, because I would have said, I can't do that, God. But he gives us those breadcrumbs, those street lights, whatever illustration you want to give. That's the reason that many times you feel like you're in the dark, is because what the light is going to shine on next may be too big for you to comprehend right now. And I'm absolutely sure that that's what is happening and is continuing to happen in this ministry. We don't know. People ask us a lot, what are your goals for Run for God? We don't know. We don't have, and you know this, we have meetings once a month or so, and we kind of plan out what we're trying to do in the next year, but we don't have a 10-year game plan here.
Right.
We don't. I have a prayer rock right behind me. I anytime I pray for somebody or have I don't just flippantly tell people that I'm going to pray for them, because most times we don't, if we're being real. If I tell you that, I'm putting it on a rock, and I'm committing to that. Well, one of the things that I put on a rock years and years ago was God give me the opportunities to share the gospel in a big way. Well, that's a goal, yes. Well, that's a commandment that we're supposed to have, but there are no, we need to be at this number by this date, we need to be at this number by this date. We haven't grown like, honestly, we thought we would. You know, we grew really fast in the early days, and we kind of leveled off, then we've kind of had a spike up. We don't have forecast, we don't have we don't have a 10-year plan, and I feel like it's for the reason that I would have never told you 10 years ago that we would be sitting here today.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of time, I mean, planning and forecasting and budgeting and all that stuff is, you know me, I'm all about it.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that can hinder us.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's us putting God in a box, saying, well, God, you can't really grow faster than this because this is our plan.
Yeah.
Well, God don't care about what the spreadsheet says. If he needs to make it happen, he's going to make it happen with or without us. And we've always kind of kept the attitude here, the door's open. You know, we need to make sure the bills are paid. We need to make sure the lights are on. We need to make sure the infrastructure is in place to grow. You know, with this new website, that's part of why we're always doing these things on the technology side, is so that if God decides to bring 1 million people into this ministry next week, the ladies outside might be flipping out because that's a lot of t-shirts to print, but we're always trying to keep the infrastructure in place, because I have no doubt there's going to come a day where God's going to do something huge in this ministry. We're one tweet, one post, one something away from, I mean, we're kind of at that tipping point that Malcolm Gladwell talks about in his book.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been sitting there, but I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah.
And I would be a fool to try to predict when that's going to be, or try to make that happen, because all we're doing is putting God in a box when we do that. And so yeah, I mean, that may be a little more behind the curtain than we should have gave, but that's the truth. We really kind of go week by week here. We don't have big forecasting strategy sessions, do we?
No. And, you know, Run Club is really the model of that, because we knew we wanted to do something like a Run Club back several years ago, and we started that, and it kind of false started.
Yeah.
And it didn't turn out like we wanted it to. And then really, if I remember, I think it was just a conversation we were having one day about, here's some things we could do. And then all of a sudden we're talking with the folks at the radio station about starting a podcast. And we're like, you know, I wonder if all this will work. And it was. And
then episode 2, a crazy thing happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole world shut down.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
That Run Club was at the right place at the exact right time. Mm-hmm. We didn't.
No, but somebody else did.
God did. And I thank God that we had allowed that door. God had laid this on our hearts, and we kind of started flushing out. You know, some people would have said, that's not going to work. We need to shut that. But we really felt that this was the direction that we were supposed to be taking this ministry. And could you imagine where we would be if that hadn't been in place?
Yeah.
I mean, COVID was hard enough, even with Run Club in place. If Run Club had not been there, I don't know that Run for God would have made it through COVID. I really don't.
Yeah,
because we were probably the worst demographic on planet Earth because we rely on groups in churches.
Yeah.
Is what we historically have relied on. And 100% of that dried up overnight.
Yeah.
But Run Club was there at the right time.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome to watch God work. Last question. Sometimes as Christians, we have a hard time giving others a second chance. Why? Aren't you glad God doesn't extend the same to us? It's kind of what we were talking about a few minutes ago, right? We're so glad that God gives us the second chances, and we need to be giving other people a second chance. We don't need to follow this model of cancel culture where we take one indiscretion somebody had 10 years ago and we go, oh, well, that person clearly is a bad person because of something they did many years ago. And I'm afraid that the people that we do that with are often people that are really close to us. And well, in my own life, I'll be a little transparent here. My father, when I was growing up, didn't spend a lot of time with me. And he regrets it today. Now, I can go back and I can look at that. And I remember when my mother was alive and we had discussions about it. And she would, my father would kind of creep into my life and we would do things together. And she was a little bit jealous of that, if I'm being truthful. And she would kind of call me out on it. Your father was never there for you when you were younger. And I would tell her, I would say, listen, I know who was there for me when I was younger. I'll never, ever forget my mother and where she was and the things she did for me when I was younger. But my father regrets not being there. And he now wants to be different.
Sure.
And I should forgive him for those things from when I was younger. And certainly I did and have. And it's been great because of that. And that's a picture of who God wants us to be, I think. At Run for God, we care about more than just your exercise. We care about your relationship with God, and we believe that the music you listen to while you run can help you build your relationship with God. That's why we partner with J Radio. J Radio offers a variety of positive and Christian playlists to listen to while you run. You can find a playlist that I put together on the Run for God station on J Radio. All right, like we always say, J Radio, world's greatest music platform. If you haven't checked it out yet, make sure that you go do that for sure. So, hey, have you ever heard of something called sciatic nerve flossing?
Flossing?
Flossing. I'd never heard this phrase before, and I just heard it this past week.
That sounds painful.
Sciatic nerve flossing.
I know what the sciatic nerve is, but I've never heard of sciatic nerve flossing.
Yeah. Well, sciatic nerve pain is something that we talk about it in a general sense, but sciatic nerve pain can come from a lot of different places. It can actually be in your spine. It can be down in your leg. It can be in your glute. It can be anywhere along the sciatic nerve, which is the nerve that runs from your back all the way down into your foot. And so, but this is a new thing, I guess. I assume it's new, where we try to get those nerves to move more freely by doing specific motions that help with that. And I have some sciatic nerve on my left side of my body. I have some sciatic nerve issues on occasion. And it's funny because I'm reading about this sciatic nerve flossing, and a lot of the things that it talks about that help with that are things that instinctively I do when I start getting those sensations in my left side. I don't do them because I've never read anywhere to do those things. I just know it feels good to do it. One of the things that it talks about is taking your knees and pulling your knees up to your chest and holding them to your chest where it's kind of stretching and pulling on your spine. That helps to release spots where maybe it's caught on a bone or something like that. And that's I do those things instinctively. It's funny how God made us to instinctively know.
It's kind of like if you're you're low in sodium, you'll crave salt.
Yeah.
It's crazy how the body works like that.
It's so cool. So, there's a lot of things that you can do for your sciatic nerve when you have things like that, and this is one of those things that you can do. There's different exercises that you can do. You can Google those and look those up. We're not going to go over those here, but
I think they need to rename that though. Sciatic flossing. What about stretching?
There's a couple. It's also called nerve flossing, nerve gliding, or neurogliding.
None of those sound appealing.
No, they don't.
They sound painful.
Yeah.
But if you say sciatic stretching, people could get behind that. That's probably why you've never heard of it, or I've never heard of it, because nobody wants to talk about flossing your sciatic nerve. They need to go back to the marketing department on that one.
Well, it's. I think this could be a big thing at some point in the future. It's a lot like if you ever talk to a chiropractor about why chiropractic works, it's because everything goes into your nerves, and everything is controlled by your nerves.
Well, I was going to say, when you started talking about this, that there's so many places on the sciatic nerve that could be painful, but there's thousands of places that it can originate from.
Right.
It could be in your foot.
Yep.
Is causing sciatic issues. So that's just trying to track that down sometimes is a hard thing to do.
Yeah. So if you have these sensations down one leg, typically that's a sciatic nerve thing, and maybe you check this out. Maybe it's something that might help get you better. All right. It's a time for Dean's Thoughts, and that's a time when I share something that I've written about the intersection between running and faith. A lot of people like things to be put into numbers. I know you're a numbers guy. So let's do that with running. This one's called the 4% investment. What does it mean to invest? We often think about the monetary application of the term, and it surely is a great example. You temporarily give up something today, in this case money, to get something more in the future, which is more money. We can look at running as an investment into our health. We give up something today, the time and energy, to get more in the future, a better, more abundant life. Of course, we can look at diet or getting a yearly checkup the same way. There are several things we can do, investments we can make that will enable us to live a more fulfilling and or longer life. There are 168 hours in a week. If you exercise 1 hour a day, that means you are spending just over 4% of your week exercising. When you think about it, it's not much to ask. If you work at a company that offers a retirement plan, maybe you already see how important 4% can be. If you start putting 4% of your pay into a 401k plan when you first start working, and you continue for the remainder of your working life, you'll have quite the nest egg on which to retire. 4% is not much at one time, but multiply it week after week after week, and eventually it becomes a big number. And that's how running works too. One 5-mile run doesn't do a lot, but string together a bunch of runs or walks, and what a difference you can make to your fitness. And I think we would all agree that an hour a day is enough to make a huge difference. We often hear about how difficult it is to find time to run, and I've been guilty myself. But let's compare the time it takes to get in a good run or walk to watching television. Many of us find time to catch either a news program or a show once a day. Let me ask an intrusive question. Which would serve you better in the long run, NCIS or a 5-mile run? Once again, multiplied over many occasions, the 5-mile run is certainly better for you. 4%. That's all it takes to get yourself into what may be the best shape of your life. Is it worth the investment? Well, I would think so. Let's apply the investment scenario to witnessing. Let's say you go up to one stranger a day and tell them about Jesus. For many of us, the thought of doing that is terrifying, isn't it? Let's say that 24 out of 25 of those you talk to reject what you're telling them. It would be sad, and it would hurt to be rejected that often, wouldn't it? But that 1 out of 25 who did something with what you had to offer them could more than make up for it, couldn't it? In a year's time, that could be 15 people who may come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Would that make it worth it? It certainly is an interesting prospect, isn't it? Incidentally, that's 4% of the people you would talk with in that year. We don't think much about investing 4% into a 401k plan. We don't think much about watching an hour of television a day. Why do we spend so much time fretting over an hour a day of exercise? It is a simple investment, a wise investment. So how about making the 4% commitment today? 1 hour a day, 7 days a week, or even 5 or 6 days a week. It could change your life. And maybe think about sharing Jesus a little more. That could change someone else's life.
Yeah, and the thing about sharing Jesus is there's the compound effect.
That's right.
That person that you share with goes and shares somebody else, and yeah, that's an incredible illustration. I've never heard it put like that, Dean. Even from the fitness side or the witnessing side, we focus on the 24 that reject us.
Yeah, we do.
But if we just focus on the one that accepts us, and over time what that looks like, good golly, I mean that's a lot of people. Yeah,
what a difference! What if we all did that? What a difference we would all make, for sure. Yeah, and 4%. I mean, 4%. You think about an hour a day. It feels like a lot when you think about going out for a run every day. I mean, it feels like it's a big portion of your day every day, but 4% is not much when you think about it. Yeah. So, and I say 4% every day, 7 days a week, but that includes other things too, not just running, if you happen to be running, or a walker, whatever it is you happen to do, but substitute that with something else. Maybe you go for a swim, maybe you go for a hike, maybe you do something else, but just that 4% a day would be a huge thing.
And I mean, as far as the medical professionals today would tell you, that's going above and beyond doing 4%. Well, they say that the standard is 30 minutes a day of getting your heart rate up. So if you take it from 2 to 4, then you're rocking it.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah. And so I think that in this idea, again, you mentioned about talking with one person a day. I remember I saw a guy one time. It was Fast Break Athletics in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And this guy was just in there, and I can't even explain what he was doing, but he was just sharing Christ with everybody that would listen to him. And he wasn't doing it in a way that seemed like it was crazy or unreasonable, but he was just sharing with anybody who would listen to him. And I still remember that. This has been 10 years ago, and I still remember that guy today, because there was just something about the boldness of doing that in a way that was, again, it wasn't in your face. We've all seen the guy who's in your face, right, and that's unappealing. This guy wasn't really in your face.
It was Jesus coming out of it.
It really was. It really was. It was really cool to watch.
He wasn't projecting. It was just coming out. He couldn't help it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think about Mark Yoho.
Yeah.
He wants people to be. He wants bad circumstances surrounding his sharing, right?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has a ministry that is very specific, and God has built him just for it.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark loves the confrontation. He loves for people to come at him when he's trying to share Christ. And the crazy thing is, you may think that that's not effective, but it absolutely is. Yeah. We all have a specific mission field for a reason, and Mark has his mission field. We're trying to reach runners. Who knew? I mean, and that's why I love ministry. That's why I love ministry outside the church, because we all have spiritual gifts. We all have gifts. We all have talents, and mine is more walking nowadays, and yours is running. And put those two together, and gosh, think about the number of people that we have the opportunity to share with.
Yeah.
And you may be out there, and maybe running is not your number one thing that you like to do. Maybe it's I don't know. I'm sitting here looking at a hunting dog picture on. Maybe it's hunting.
Yeah.
There's a mission field there.
Yep.
Maybe it's crochet. There's a mission field there. Find what you're passionate about and you're good at, and that's where God wants you.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you struggle with motivation to exercise? Are you looking for something that will challenge you and inspire and motivate you? The Run for God Run Club is just what you need to get off the couch and on your way to a fitter, healthier you. Stop trying to get into better shape and do it with the help and inspiration of thousands of others who are going through the same challenges you face. Whether you are participating in the Couch to Marathon Challenge or any of our other challenges, or you're just looking for a daily pick-me-up to get active, join the Run for God Run Club today. You can join for as little as 27 cents a day. So what are you waiting for? Get started today at runforgod.com.
All right, we're back, and there's so much going on in the professional track world right now. And I know, I imagine we have listeners. We have some who look forward to hearing about this, and some who are like, "Oh, he's going to talk about professional folks again." But it's, but you know, NCAA's are over. There were some great performances there. The USA championships are coming up, and then the World Championships, and it's all coming together right now, and it's so much fun to watch some of these folks. Noah Lyles just ran crazy fast for the 200, so he's back. I'm really excited to see him back. He seems like he's probably the guy to beat in the 200 worldwide. Hopefully that'll come together. It didn't last time in the Olympics, so hopefully it'll come together. Of course, we still have Kung Fu Kenny Bednarik, who's also really good. And this Joseph Fahnbulleh, they just had the NCAA championships, and Joseph Fahnbulleh won the 100 and the 200. Here's what's interesting about Joseph Fahnbulleh. He's a huge guy. It's a lot like Usain Bolt was so much bigger than everybody else. Mm-hmm. Well, Fahnbulleh is kind of like that. He's a real big guy. And once he gets up to full speed, he's just so fast. But it takes him a while. So in the 100 meters at the NCAA championships, halfway through the race, he was dead last in the championship, and then wound up winning and just passed everybody. I've never heard of somebody sitting and kicking in the 100, but that seems to be the way he operates. Yeah. So I'm really, and of course
I'm going to sit in for the first 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to turn it on for the 6. Yeah. Wow.
So he's an interesting guy, and he's going to be fun to watch. I'm going to be interested to watch him in the NCAA in the USA's because, gosh, as fast as he is, as a matter of fact, his coach, he goes to the University of Florida, which is, you know, they've had a lot of really, really fast guys at the University of Florida, and his coach has coached many, many world-class people, Olympians, and he says that this guy is the fastest top-end speed guy he's ever seen. So going to be interesting to see if he can put it all together. And another sprinter, Shakira Richardson, kind of came back. She's one of those flamboyant people. She was wearing fishnet stuff, and just, I don't understand why you want to wear all that stuff when you're running. She'll have these big eyelashes and jewelry, and
she's all about the eyes.
Yeah. But she's back to running well again. So of course she was beaten by another American, Aaliyah Hobbs, from a former LSU runner. Another interesting thing that just happened to Devin Allen, he went to the University of Oregon. I think he's like 27 now, so it's been a few years, but he ran 12.84 for the hurdles, which is one of the fastest times in history. I think it's third fastest all time. Devin Allen is a football player now. He is trying out for the Philadelphia Eagles as a receiver. They don't know. He's got probably an outside chance of making the team. They said he's probably going to make the practice squad. But we've talked about this before, that it seems like people who do more than one sport, it's why triathletes thrive a lot of times. He seems to be better when he's doing some football on the side.
I've never thought about a hurdler. That just naturally makes a good receiver or running back. I mean,
you would think.
You spend a lot of your time jumping over people, and never thought about that.
Yeah. Yep. I mentioned earlier, Caitlin Toohey won the 5K from NC State for her first NCAA title. You know, she was a big high school phenom, talked about for years, and so it's cool because a lot of times they fade away, and Caitlin's back on top, and that's really, really cool to see because I think she's got a big future. And then one of my favorite stories of the weekend was Abby Steiner from Kentucky. She ran 21.8 in the 200. She won she ran the 100. I think she finished third or fourth in the 100. And then she ran the 4x4 And it's the most amazing 4x4 leg I've ever seen. She went from being 20 meters back to leading the race by the time she gave up the baton. Just absolutely incredible. So you have a girl here who is incredible from 100 meters all the way to 400 meters. The last person that I remember that could do that was the mother, though.
I'm not going to be able to help you there.
Yeah.
Oh, Allison Felix.
Allison Felix.
Wow.
Yes.
I knew
Look at there.
some track trivia.
Yeah. And so she's Allison Felix like. Her PRs are actually very close to what Allison Felix's are. So that's she's going to be an up and coming interesting person to watch. Abby Steiner, don't forget that name. Courtney Wayment was another one. She ran the steeplechase and set the NCAA record by a long way. The old record was 9:24, and she ran 9:16. That's huge. So there are very few women who have ever run under 9 minutes. So that tells you how good she is. She's 16 seconds away from that. There's only one American that's ever run under 9 minutes. That's Courtney Frericks. But it's going to be interesting to see how Courtney does with, of course, Courtney Frericks and Emma Coburn when it comes time for the USAs here shortly. So it's
So what was the deal? I saw a race. We were in Florida. What was going on when we were in Florida? And Emma Coburn was dead last in the steeplechase. What happened with that? Was it just off day or?
Yeah. She just hadn't looked good. Courtney Frericks was in that one too.
Yeah.
And she didn't run well either. But they have since run another race since that race, and they looked much better. So I think they're rounded into shape at the right time. I think they're probably running through they weren't peaking for those races and just looking to get into better shape. So we'll see. And another fun story, a girl from Florida, Anna Hall, she's a heptathlete. You know, those are the athletes that do multiple events. They do 8 different events in 2 days. And she's running 4 of it. She's basically competing in 4 events in one day, and they're basically back to back to back. They're pretty close together. And in the middle of that, she also runs the 400-meter hurdles event. And so she runs the 400-meter hurdles event, and then 20 minutes later has to run the 800 meters for the heptathlon.
So the 400 hurdles is not part of the heptathlon,
No,
or it is?
It is not.
So that's an individual.
Yeah, the 100-meter hurdles is part of the heptathlon. 400-meter hurdles is not. So it's a whole separate event that she just throws in the middle. And 20 minutes before the 800, which is the most painful thing of the heptathlon, is that 800-meter run at the end. She finished second in the hurdles. Man, she struggled in that 800, though. She's a great 800 runner. She didn't have to worry about it because in the heptathlon, it's all about points, and she had enough points that all she had to do was finish, and she was going to be fine. And so that's what she was doing. But it was fun to watch her. All she's trying to do is score as many points as she can for her school. And it's really cool to see people who are invested that much in trying to do well for their school.
So I know we got to move on. I know we got to get off here. We're about to start running late. But I want you to tell everybody the story you just told me before we started about the
Cade Flat.
Yeah. This is the story I love.
Yeah. So Cade,
and you don't even have it on here.
No, but I wrote it in later. But
did you?
Cade Flat is a high school runner who runs the 800 meters, and he self-described as 800-meter specialist. Because they were asking him, about...
I have a picture in my head. I've never seen this kid, but you know what athlete that we know pops into my head.
Oh, yeah.
Say this.
Yeah, and this kid happens to be a tall kid, too. Yeah.
And so, Patton, if you're listening...
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about this, but both of us are thinking this.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah.
I'll call him and tell him to listen to this one. Sure.
He's got a cool name. Cade Flat just sounds cool to me. I don't know why, but it does. He's, I think, right now the second fastest high schooler of all time. He's going for the record this weekend. By the time this podcast comes out, he may be a high school record holder. And he's a big talker. But I love the way he does it. There's so many of these people. So I'm quite frankly sometimes put off by the way that Shakira Richardson talks and some of the others.
Cockiness. A
little bit but this guy is he is cocky, but he comes off different.
It's more on the confidence side.
Yeah. And he so they're asking him about how many miles a week do you run? And he said he looked over his log for the last 3 weeks. 3 to 5 miles a week, 3 to 5 miles a week. Now, they asked him, said, now, are you counting warm up and cool down? He said, no. He said, my warm up is a 300-meter jog. So, this guy just does very little. I mean, he just does a lot of sprint work.
Is he kind of a bigger guy, or is he more lanky?
He's more lanky, tall guy. He runs a good he's run the 446. He's a pretty fast 400 runner as well. So he's more on the sprinting side. So a lot of sprinters can get by with a lot less mileage. I gotta
look this kid up.
But not that much less.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to the University of Mississippi, I think, next year.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him, because the other guys at the University of Mississippi are not running 3 to 5 miles a week.
Sure.
They're running way more than that.
Well, and this is where some wisdom has to come into a coach, because something's working like that. You don't need to go throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, you've got to make some small adjustments, or you could ruin this kid.
Yeah.
You say, all right, you're running 30 miles this week. That might be the worst thing that's ever happened to him.
You're right.
That'd be interesting to follow that.
So I'm listening to this interview, and they asked him, well, who's your coach? And because they're thinking, all these guys, a lot of these high schoolers now are coached by somebody famous, and his coach is his English teacher. and basically he said, he's like, he's my coach. He's a great guy. He said, and somebody asked him maybe about, other coaches and stuff. I'm sticking with him till the end. He's like, I'm perfectly happy with my English teacher
He's gonna have
coaching
to get
me.
some time off to go to the World Championships with me.
Yeah. It's just refreshing.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah, just a raw guy who goes out there and gives it his best, and is excited about it. It's pretty cool. All right. How about a trivia question for this week? The trivia question is this. The record for the coldest ever marathon was set this year. Tell me when and where.
No clue.
If you know the answer to that, you can send it to dean@runforgod.com. If you don't know the answer to it, go ahead and Google it, and then you can send it to me.
Or take a guess.
Yeah, you're probably not going to guess, though. You're not going to get this one if you guess.
Huh? Okay.
I'm almost 100% sure you've never heard of this marathon. So, but check it out, because it's interesting. So send that to dean@runforgod.com. The first person to send that to me at dean@runforgod.com will get a Run Club tumbler.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Every reason I share a reason why running is so awesome, and this is the reason this week. Is there a better way to test your limits than running? Most people may not test their actual limits for their entire life, but as a runner, we do it regularly. And I think that's pretty cool. When we're trying to run PRs, we're trying to push our limits. When we're in a workout, we're trying to push our limits. I just think it's something that a lot of people never get to really get to test their limits. And as runners, we get to do that.
When the triathlon team was young, we used to make the comment, you never know how far you can go until you go too far. Mm-hmm. And that's the cool thing about running, is you can do that. And whether it's distance or it's speed or failure is not always a bad thing in this. Failure in life is not always a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it's especially true for sport. You find your limits, because many times, we talk about the firewalk.
Yep.
We've talked about that before, and that wall is a lot further out there than you think it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We're constantly challenging ourselves, and the cool thing about being a runner and pushing ourselves like that is that it helps us with other things in life too. When we run up against that hard thing, whatever it is, it helps us because we realize, okay, I've done hard things. Mm-hmm. So. All right, how about a motivational thought of the week? The motivational thought of the week comes from Helen Keller, and she said this: character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved.
I like that. Remind me of who Helen Keller was.
Helen Keller was the one that was blind and deaf.
That's right.
And so she understood struggle.
Sure.
And she was an amazing, amazing woman. Obviously, she wasn't a runner, but she this has some good insight into running and what we do. It's true for our job. It's true for our faith. It's true for everything. That the struggle, character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. I like that. Yep. Well, all right. Until next week, hope everybody has a great week. We'll see you, or listen. I don't know if we'll see them. We won't see anybody. But we'll talk to you again in a
Well, we
week.
could see them at the Hawkins.
That's
10K.
right.
So go get registered for that. You can do it virtually from anywhere USA, or you can come to Cartersville and hang out with us.
Yeah.
We want to meet you guys. So this is another opportunity to do that. So go to runforgod.com, click on the Hawkins 10K. It's free. It's a great fundraiser for Run for God if you want to do that. If you don't, come join us for free.
Yep, for sure. All right. Now may God bless every step of every run. Go out there and shine your light.
Good job, Dean.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.